All right, so today I will be talking about my assessment rubric for golf, which I've chosen. And the three skills I've chosen are your grip, stance, and swing. So we will start off by talking about the grip, which I have a golf club here. And the first thing I will be teaching the students is to place the left hand on the top or on the end of the golf club with their thumb on top of the grip and their hand wrapped around the other side. Then the next step will be to take their right hand or their opposite hand, placing it on top of their thumb, wrapping their fingers around the bottom of the club and placing the thumb on top of the club. And if they choose to, they're allowed to interlock their pinkies, maybe for more control, but if they do not want to, they don't have to. But that's an option they have. I want their grip to be firm, but not squeezing too tight. If their knuckles are turning white, maybe they're squeezing too hard. But I just want to have a nice firm grip, but nice and comfortable. After I've taught that, I will have the students all grip their clubs the way I've taught. I'll go around and check each one of their grips. A proficient one will be one that does not need any adjustments, is doing the grip correctly as I've taught. And then a one that is acceptable will be one that needs minor adjustments, like maybe their thumb has come off the grip and I just need to place it back on there, or maybe their hands are rotated too far, slight adjustments that are acceptable. Then one that needs work is maybe one that is gripping it like a baseball bat or has their hands flipped and have them on the wrong side. And that'll be in the needs work category of my rubric. The next skill I will talk about is the stance. So I will talk about, the first thing I will tell them is to have a shoulder width apart stance, which means their feet are even with your shoulders. And I want to have a balanced distribution of my weight, which means I want to have my weight centered in my stance. So I'm not leaning too far to the right or to the left. And I'm going to have a balanced stance with a slight bend at the hips and knees, looking down at my ball. We're not having a club on this one, but we're just focusing on how our stance will look. Slight bend at the knees, slight bend at the hip with a balanced stance. And I will go around and check all the students' stances to see if they are performing it correctly. If they are performing it the way I've taught, with no adjustments needed, they will go into the proficient category. And then the acceptable category will be maybe their weight is not centered and just need to slightly shift it there. Maybe they don't have a correct bend, you need to bend more correctly, and that will fall under the acceptable category. The students who need work will maybe be the ones that are not standing correctly or just do not understand what I've taught. They just are not performing the stance as I've taught them, and that will be in the needs work category. So the final skill that I will teach is the swing, which I've broken down into three categories: the back swing, the down swing, and the follow through. So I will have the students get into their proper stance, shoulder width apart, slight bend at the hips and knees, and then I will have them grab their clubs and get their proper grip with their left hand at the back. If they're a right-handed swinger, left hand at the back and the right hand on top, both thumbs on top, not squeezing too hard. I will line up and have the weight centered in my body with the club down on the ground. And we will start with the back swing, which is a rotation of the hips and not the upper body. And as I rotate my hips, the club will follow. I'm going to have straight arms. The club will follow as I shift my weight. And as I get to a certain point, my right arm will start to break and bend while my left arm stays completely straight. The club will not touch my body. The club will stay up and out. And that'll be the backswing, a rotation of the hips, straight arm with a bent elbow. And I will go around and check their backswings. I will look for the rotation of the hips and not shoulders. I will look for the straight arm of the left with the bent arm of the right. And I will look to see if their club is touching their body. If they perform all of these things without any corrections needed, they will be proficient. The acceptable category will be someone who maybe has their club touching their body and just needs to pull it up, or their elbow is bent and I need to straighten it out. And then they just need minor adjustments. The needs work category will be someone who maybe does not move their hips at all, or are just swinging to the side or something that is not acceptable or not what I've explained in my instruction. The next thing that we will talk about is the downswing. So as we're up in our backswing with the straight arm, the elbow bent on the right, and the hips have turned, we will begin our downswing, which is also a turn of the hips, not shoulders. And as I turn my hips back to straight, my club will follow. And as I'm coming down to make contact with the ball, all my weight will shift to my left or my front foot, and my arms will be out in front, making contact with the ball. And it's important to make sure that they keep their heads down, eyes on the ball. I don't want to see eyes up, looking up. I want to keep my eyes focused on the ball the entire time I'm about to make contact with it. I will have my students then perform their downswing. I will look to see if they're keeping their head down, rotating from the hips, and making contact with the ball right in front of them with all their weight shifting to their front foot. And if they are performing those correctly, they will be proficient. If they are doing a couple things wrong that need minor adjustments, it'll be acceptable. And the needs work category will be for anybody that does not rotate at the hips, does not keep their head down the entire time, does not shift their weight all the way to the front, and is not performing as I've instructed. Then the final part of the swing will be the follow through. So as our weight is shifted to our front foot, our club is making contact with the ball, our eyes are down, we are going to extend out through the contact of the ball and extend out until the ball leaves the club, keeping my eyes on the ball the entire time. And as the ball leaves the club, I will then break my arms, shift my weight to my front foot, and finish with the club behind my head. I will ask the students to perform their follow through and look to see if they are extending their arms out through contact and finishing with the club behind their head, keeping their eye on the ball the entire time, and finishing with all their weight on their front foot. If they perform all these things correctly, they will fall into the proficient category. Any student that needs small corrections, like not keeping their eye on the ball the whole time, maybe not finishing with the club all the way behind their head, or not all the way shifted on their front foot, will be acceptable. And any student that does not finish, maybe to the side, or just does not shift their weight at all, maybe leans back and doesn't have a proper swing as I've instructed, will fall in the needs work category. So those are my 3 skill assessments, which are going to be grip, stance, and swing for my rubric. And as I said, the students will fall into a proficient, acceptable, or needs work category based on what I've seen them, based on how they perform after my instruction. So thank you.